Good morning, friends. It's a great pleasure to welcome all of you, representatives of the state governments, chief secretaries, resident commissioners, here to Jawaharlal Nehru Bhavan, to the Ministry of External Affairs. I would like to thank you for finding the time to come here for this interaction, in spite of the fact that we are entering a very busy schedule of events in preparation for our national elections. The Home Secretary will be joining us in about half an hour or so. He's been called away for a meeting, but we hope to have the benefit of his presence and his remarks in this very important interaction. I thought that we could start by my giving you some idea as to why we have organized this interaction and what we hope to achieve from it. I thought it was also a useful forum to convey to you how the Ministry of External Affairs looks at how India shapes and implements its foreign policy and the role of state governments in interacting with the government of India in shaping and implementing it. We would be very glad to answer your questions as we go on. I hope this is only the first of many comprehensive interactions that we have with the state governments, covering all our various areas of interaction. I know that just a few days back, you already had a fairly comprehensive briefing from our Secretary West, Sri Dinkar Khulla, and our Chief of Protocol relating to the protocol aspects of what the state governments do. We'd be happy to take this forward depending on what you feel is important, including, if you wish, by training for state government officials. We have a Foreign Service Institute. We'll be very glad to organize a 2 or 3 day module on various aspects of where state governments can benefit from the benefit of our own experiences. As I wrote in my communication to the Chief Secretaries, this is the view of the Ministry of External Affairs to share our perspectives on the numerous issues on which MEA interfaces with state governments. Today I have with me the heads of division of consular matters. May I request you to kindly stand up? This is Ms. Mukta Tomar, who is Joint Secretary, Consular Passports and Visas, and is our Chief Passport Officer, and Sri Muktesh Pardeshi, who is Joint Secretary, Passports. I have the Chief of Protocol, Ms. Ruchira Kamboj, then Joint Secretary, Coordination, Ms. Neeta Bhushan, Joint Secretary, Investment and Technology Promotion. This is Mr. Prabhat Kumar. And during lunch, you will meet several of my colleagues who look after Pakistan, Afghanistan, Iran, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Myanmar, Maldives, and all the other countries. They will be joining us over lunch. Let me try and describe, to start with, as simply as possible, what it is that MEA does and the key imperatives of India's foreign policy. To start with, I believe that if India's foreign policy is to have any relevance to our nation or mean anything in substantive terms, then in addition to the classic objectives of foreign policy, which is to ensure national security, to protect territorial integrity, and to have the independence to make our own decisions, it has to be an essential part of India's own domestic objectives, which is 1, lifting the poor out of poverty, 2, providing our young people with employment opportunities, 3, improving physical and social infrastructure for all Indians, 4, to try and ensure an enabling external environment for our national development, including access to markets, resources, energy and key technologies. And 5, to try and ensure that the agendas being set in an ever globalizing and interdependent world serve India's needs and priorities. The Prime Minister addressed all our ambassadors at an annual conference late last year, and he noted that 5 principles have come to define our foreign policy. 1, India's relations with the world are increasingly shaped by its developmental priorities. Our objective is to create a global environment that is conducive to the well-being of India. 2, greater interaction and integration with the world economy is of benefit to India and its people. 3, we seek stable, long-term and mutually beneficial relations with all major powers and are ready to work with the world to create a global economic and security environment beneficial to all. 4, the Indian subcontinent's shared destiny requires greater regional cooperation and connectivity. And 5, our foreign policy is defined not only by our interests, but by our values. The fact of the matter is simply this: India is changing, and so are our neighbors. The past few years have seen South Asia emerging as one of the fastest growing regions in the world, notwithstanding the global economic downturn. Granted, this is from a low base, but the economic growth figures are encouraging. As importantly, they bring with them growing aspirations as well as growing demands on the political classes in all these countries to respond. This brings me to the next important change: the beginning of multi-party democracy taking roots in every country in our region. Every country in South Asia is either going into or emerging from an electoral process. The democracies are still nascent, but they bring with them larger constituencies for peace, for economic progress, and for development. People want to get on with their lives and not remain hostage to any narrow political agendas or ideologies. In this process, it is clear to many of us that more than anything else, India leads by example, by being India, the largest functioning democracy in the world. This is something that perhaps our neighbors are best placed to observe and appreciate. To note that it is possible through persistence and determination for a democracy to arrive at solutions, that it is possible to have an inclusive growth process that translates into visible benefits on the ground for all sections of society, and that in spite of its shortcomings, democracy serves the country better in the long run than military rule or other authoritarian forms of government. There are other things that have changed. There are an increasing number of stakeholders and constituencies for growth and normalcy. It is no longer the case that governments are the only players determining relationships with neighbors. Besides government, the media is playing a critical role, as is trade and industry, civil society, and overseas Indian diasporas who, through the strength of their remittances and linkages, are often in a position to influence developments. Another significant change, which is very important, especially in terms of its implications for our Northeast and what this means for our engagement with ASEAN, is the evolving situation in Myanmar, which is seeing the beginning of democratic change and growing interest from foreign investors. Then there is the fact of digital connectivity, of the revolution in telecommunications, in television, in radio and the internet, which has allowed Indians to connect to the world, but has also allowed us to connect with our neighbors and our neighbors to connect with us, bringing home the realities of a new India and the myriad ways in which it has changed. The digital connectivity has unfortunately outpaced physical connectivity, which, while it has made significant progress, has not advanced as quickly as it should have. The physical infrastructure of roads, railways, airports, waterways and power grids are being put in place. This is an increasing priority, clearly, with us. In short, the growing strength of the Indian economy is translating itself inter alia into a growing ability, accompanied by a growing willingness to assist our neighbors in realizing their own developmental aspirations, including through provision of essential commodities and services at special prices to at least 3 neighbors. In the process, there is coming about, slowly but surely, an expanding network of economic interlinkages and interdependencies. Well, it's a pleasure to welcome the Home Secretary in our midst. I was just in the middle of my opening remarks. Yet another factor is the role of our development partnerships with our neighbors. Just 2 years back, we started the Development Partnership Administration within the Ministry of External Affairs to bring together all the technical and economic cooperation that we have with countries all over the world. And in this, what we do with our neighbors is the most important part. This is a particularly important factor in the transformation of our ties, with a growing number of participants from neighboring countries attending courses over a wide range of disciplines, from audit and accounts to information technology, telecommunications and English. There are different training programs which we have with our South Asian neighbors, and we are undertaking mid-career training programs for nearly 2,000 officers, say from our neighboring countries, from customs officers, elections commission officers to Upazila officials, including to teachers and to scientists. So we have a bilateral agenda, and then we also have a regional agenda within the context of SAARC and BIMSTEC. And SAARC is almost 30 years old, so we decided to work with our neighbors on a sustained approach to advance regional cooperation. It has also created a forum for continued and regular interaction at the official and people-to-people level, and provides a platform where they can meet and our leaders can meet face-to-face and get to interact with each other. And such sustained interaction is only to be welcomed, since it leads to improved understanding at the official and technical levels. We also have ambitious projects such as the South Asian University, which is presently in its 4th academic year, set up by India in New Delhi, and it has 340 students from all 8 SAARC countries. So the field of education clearly holds promise. What happens beyond our borders with neighboring countries in many respects follow developments within the country. Our Northeast is the gateway to ASEAN and the countries of Southeast Asia. But before we can talk of taking advantage of the economic opportunities that are there to be exploited, it is important to focus on the northeastern region itself and strengthening its economic base and infrastructure. I think the importance of the Northeast also lies in its being integral to the very idea of India, an India of rich diversity, an incredible mingling of peoples, races, cultures and languages, an India which is the sum of each of its parts, politically, economically, culturally and strategically. On the strategic side, the Northeast is the region which has international borders with the highest number of countries amongst all the regions of India. Bhutan and China on the north, Bangladesh in the southwest, and Myanmar on the east. Each of these borders bring with them their own set of issues and challenges. On the security front, there are pockets of insurgency, cross-border illegal movement of people, smuggling, drug trafficking, and other such issues. In coordination with our sister ministries, especially the Ministry of Home Affairs. Our efforts to deal with these issues have been intensive and continuous, and I'm glad to say there has been visible forward movement. We have some way to go, but there has been forward movement with regard to many of these challenges. India's foreign policy is ultimately the sum total of what every arm of government of India does vis-à-vis the countries we interact with, particularly in the immediate neighborhood. We have put in your folders an organogram of the ministry, which to some extent should demystify the functioning of the Ministry of External Affairs. I head the ministry in charge of MEA's mandate. I am helped by 4 secretaries: Secretary West, Mr. Dinkakulla; Secretary East, Mr. Anil Wadhwa; Secretary Economic Relations, Ms. Sujata Mehta; Special Secretary Political, Mr. Navdeep Sarna; and Special Secretary Administration, Mr. R. Swaminathan. Below them are respective heads of territorial divisions, each handling a specific country, region, or cross-cutting thematic division. It is a fact that as India's role in the globalized world assumes greater significance, several key decisions relating to Indian foreign policy are increasingly implemented at the level of state governments. The inputs and cooperation of the state governments are thus critical in achieving our foreign policy objectives. A less acknowledged fact is that the perspectives of the state governments on several dimensions of India's political interests, especially with our neighboring countries, and general economic interests also constitute a very important input in the manner in which we frame our external policy. How it manifests itself could be debated, but what is not in question is its relevance. We could perhaps arrive at a lengthy list in which we need better and more coordinated inputs from state governments to better respond to the needs of the country and its citizens both in India and abroad. Let me try and focus on just a couple of them. Connecting India physically, economically, and culturally with its immediate and extending neighborhood. We would appreciate better coordination with the state governments, both in conception of projects on the ground and their implementation. Economic interests, especially pertaining to trade, investment, energy, procurement of technology, considerable part of the action and implementation in these domains, in particular in these economic fields, rests with state governments. What we need is a streamlined two-way communication channel through which we could tell you what we need through embassies overseas when we help state delegations coming overseas, and you could tell us how we need to improve our functioning to better respond to your needs. It is for this reason that your folder contains a listing of designated officials in our missions abroad who could serve as a point of communication with the state governments. Likewise, we would request you to help in identifying a point person in each of the state governments with whom our embassies and consulates and we in the ministry could get in touch with on issues we are together required to deliver on. Increasingly, foreign countries, including through their embassies in Delhi, have expanded their interaction with the state governments. This is a positive development, but in order to optimize such interactions from the point of view of our national interest, it is important that we all read from the same script. It is also important to ensure that they are at the right level. We would request all state governments to stay in touch with GOI on this, especially with protocol and the head of the relevant territorial division. And I'm sure that we all know that everybody has competing, varying agendas. We need to ensure that whatever happens in terms of a program, in terms of a particular objective, is in line with our objective rather than an agenda that is set somewhere else. I'm sure we all agreed that the visit of any delegation abroad, including of state delegations, should not be an end in itself, which I confess does happen sometimes. Rather, it should provide a base for us to build a sustained business and political relationships with the countries. So there are a host of functional areas which are of great importance, and we have colleagues who will be making a brief presentation. I would also like to say that the MEA has a certain presence in virtually each state. To start with, first we have regional passport offices in many states. In addition to this, the Indian Council for Cultural Relations has local offices in at least 20 different cities. And finally, the Ministry of External Affairs works very closely with universities and think tanks, especially in some of the states. We are looking at how we can optimize this presence to ensure that there is a two-way interaction between the Ministry of External Affairs and the state governments to better coordinate our objectives and our functioning. The Ministry of External Affairs funds several foreign policy projects in different universities and think tanks in many states. So this is an area that we can further strengthen, and your views and inputs would be very useful. Let me conclude by saying that there is a remarkable transformation that is taking place all across India. In order to leverage this in our foreign policy, it is critical that we all work together to further our foreign policy goals. An important first step in this direction is to interact increasingly with each other in order to appreciate the opportunities that have opened up and in addressing the various issues that arise. The meeting today is an attempt by my ministry to undertake a greater and more structured outreach to the state governments so as to benefit from your viewpoint, including the viewpoint of the Ministry of Home Affairs on the issues that concern us. We look forward to sustaining and deepening this engagement as we go along. Once again, I deeply appreciate that all of you could find the time to come and interact with us today. Thank you.